Yo, and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji, with me is Patrick. How you doing, boy?
I've been looking forward to that. I'm doing well, man. Yeah, it's good to meet you.
Everyone loves the intro.
There's some bad ones going around, some pretty dodgy podcast intros, but that one's, it's memorable, it's kind of sharp, it's quick. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration really came from the group of guys that I kind of played fan tracks with, started my Play Toga days with, right? It's funny, like, I don't think a lot of people know the background behind our name as well, but the reason Banter Boys came up is with the same group of lads, we have multiple WhatsApp chats, as any close group of friends do, right? You have a WhatsApp chat for different things. So one of them was called Top Banter, which was just basically all sports. The other one was called Boys on Earth because we were a collection of individuals spread across the globe that just stayed in touch. So I was like, when I made the pod, I was just like, I talk to you guys all the time. Why don't I just make the thing called Banter Boys? So yeah, that's the birth of it. Anyways, the listeners aren't here to listen to me. They're here to listen to you, Patrick. So let's start things off with our fan introduction. Tell us your name, your Twitter handle, the club that you're representing tonight, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. So, thank you for listening, guys. I'm Patrick. The reason my voice is extra deep is because I'm in Japan at the moment. I'm living in Japan. Been here for about 10 years or so, and I guess due to the time difference, Sanji, you're, what is it, 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, so I've kind of dragged myself out of bed. I've managed to get some water on my face, water on my hair, drag a comb through my hair, and got the Vissel Kobe shirt on, more importantly. So Sanji was very impressed with that earlier on. Twitter, Zippy Patrick, that's what I am on there, or Vissel at Patrick is what I sometimes go as. Big fan of the J League, big fan of Vissel Kobe. So you never know, there may be like a J League equivalent of this going around at some point. Bit of a sticky subject. Obviously, you've got Bournemouth there in the title, and yeah, today I'll be focusing on that. I'm more than happy to do that, and I do have that allegiance, absolutely. So I was born just outside of Bournemouth in Christchurch, which is like a small town. I guess my family wasn't really that into football growing up, so, but I kind of went along to football practice. And I saw all the kids were wearing shirts, so I was like, I need to pick one of these. And I ended up on Manchester United. I ended up on Manchester United. But then so I started to watch them on the TV, but that was kind of far from Bournemouth, right? So my dad started taking me to Bournemouth after that, which was, my local team. They were what was it? Premiership.
Championship,
Division 1, Division
League
2,
1, League 2.
It was pre-championship days.
Pre-championship.
Like,
okay, wow.
I'm 31 years old, so I don't want to make out like I'm a dinosaur or anything. But yeah, so they were right, bottom, lowest of the low, pretty much in the Football League table at the time, and I never would have guessed, never in a million years, that they would have climbed through the leagues like that. It's been insane. I mean, I remember getting promoted to League 1 was a big deal because they were like a yo-yo side down there in the lower end of the Football League table, the pyramid, and then Championship and Premier League happened after that. I would say Man U, Bournemouth, and Vissel all have a very strong place in my heart, I'll say, but I'll try to stick to Bournemouth today.
For sure. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, sacrificing your sleep to inform the listeners everything Bournemouth and chat everything fan tracks as well. So excited to get this chat started. So listeners, welcome back to another Inside Trax series. This series has been all about interviewing managers in our fan tracks community, and each one represents one of the 20 clubs in the Premier League for the 23-24 season. If you're new to this, the typical format for these episodes have been, we've got 3 segments. A general discussion where we talk about impact of new manager or ownership, which is quite relevant for this episode. Next one, we talk about previous season's performance, new season's expectations, old system versus new system, basically the impact of new transfers. Then we look at expected formation, starting 11, impact of AFCON or Asian Cup. And then obviously we're going to talk fan tracks. We're going to get Patrick's first pick from Bournemouth, his next 3 picks, and at least 1 hidden gem. And then finally, we'll pick his brain as an experienced fan tracks manager with regards to trading, maybe fab, but also lessons learned over the past few seasons of playing this game. All right, let's get started. So before I let you get into the spiel about the ownership and managerial change, just to kind of catch listeners up as to what kind of happened last season, just a quick few highlights. Bournemouth started the season with Scott Parker. Unfortunately, he only lasted 4 game weeks. His last game was the 9-0 loss to Liverpool. He was fired on August the 30th, and then in comes Gary O'Neill. I would say underrated and immediately given odds to get the sack or get relegated, but he keeps them up. Premier League survival, I want to say with a few games to spare. He ended the season with like a 29% win rate, but I feel like that's a bit skewed given the fact that once Bournemouth secured promotion, they kind of just chilled, you know? Nothing really to play for. But Patrick, I'm going to let you give the listeners the real lowdown as to what it was like to be a Bournemouth fan last season.
That was nicely put. I think they were really well and truly on the beach at that point. I think they had the points in the bag. There was some real dross at the bottom of the league. I mean, I think Leeds were looking really rough last year. Who else went down? It's
Leicester.
Leicester, yeah.
Southampton,
extraordinarily bad. Yeah, Southampton. Yeah, not great. So they had the ability. They had some breathing room there, to just take a break for a few weeks. Which is probably ultimately what lost O'Neill his job, right? What cost him his job, I kind of feel. The timing of this episode is very apt because I know he just got appointed as the Wolves manager.
Oh, right? It's confirmed. Wow.
Yeah, I believe so. It's almost there, yeah.
What a brilliant way to timestamp it. Yeah, listeners, I really should timestamp our episodes, but we're recording on Wednesday, the 9th of August. I'm assuming it's Thursday, the 10th of August, where you are, Patrick, right?
That's right. Yeah. Which I think the reception to him being hired at Wolves is kind of mixed, to put it kindly. I think a lot of people, it's going from the previous manager, was it Lopetegui?
Yeah, Lopetegui, yeah.
Who, of course, he's just really well respected in the game. Whereas Gary O'Neill is kind of an up-and-coming manager. He's got a very dour face, I would say. He doesn't inspire confidence initially, just from when you look at him. And I guess on the pitch, I just about remember him playing for Portsmouth, and he was kind of solid but unremarkable, I guess. But even so, just going back to Bournemouth, he did some really good things. I mean, I think Scott Parker got Bournemouth out of the Championship, and you've got to respect him for that. Obviously, there's the whole thing about them having the huge parachute payments, and there's often the teams that come up and down, right? So it wasn't an unthinkable feat or anything like that, but it was a good achievement, and they were solid that year. And what has he gone on to after that? He
managed a Champions League team, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I remember watching the Champions League, and I was just like, is that Scott Parker in the dugout? Like,
Right. Dressed immaculately, right? I have to say, one of the other podcasts I listen to, the Football Ramble, they say one of the hosts says that he dresses like a World War II fighter pilot. He's got that kind of...
Because he has the stripes on his arm and stuff like that. Yeah. So he was at Club Bruges, if I remember correctly.
Yes, okay, that's the one. He's got a good aesthetic going on, I guess. Management skills are kind of a little hit and miss, but I'm sure he'll be managing in Saudi Arabia in no time. Yeah. That kind of dude. Yes, just going back to Bournemouth, a new manager has come in, of course. Andoni Iraola. How was my pronunciation? Does that?
Yeah, fantastic. Better than what I would have attempted, to be honest.
So he was just appointed in June. Spanish guy. I say guy. He did 3 years at Rayo Vallecano, who came up when they went up to La Liga from whatever the second division is called there in the playoffs in 2021. It's interesting that they hired him on the same day that O'Neill was fired. So a lot of people thought that was kind of callous. That was a little bit heartless. But clearly, he was someone who they had in mind for a while. Yeah. I guess his highlights from there got a couple of good finishes in La Liga with them. I think the highest was 10th last season. They had a cup run to the semis at the Copa del Rey, where they were beaten by Betis 3-2. I think he was very close to joining Leeds a few months back, right when they were kind of fighting at the bottom of the table. Didn't happen. I think he was all for it, but then his club actually didn't let him go. So I've got a couple of notes about the manager himself.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go straight into it before we can touch on the ownership after you talk about Iraola for a bit. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Sure, of course. So I must confess I've watched all of Manchester United's friendlies this summer. Bournemouth's friendlies, it's mostly been a highlights job, I have to say. I don't know if you would be able to watch the full match live in England, if there's a way to do that. Perhaps that there is a way to do it remotely from Japan as well, but just hadn't really had the time to do it. But having watched the friendlies, some things that I found online people say he has a high risk, high reward style of playing. He plays with a lot of width in his teams. Heavy metal football is something that came up, which is obviously something you associate with Klopp. Yeah. So I just wrote down in kind of in brackets there, Klopp light. He's kind of like a Aldi version of Klopp, you might say. I'm not sure if that's fair. I'm not sure. It's interesting how the reception to him differs depending on what social media platform you look at. On Twitter, the Bournemouth fans are actually they seem pretty up for it. They seem very supportive, and they accept that it's quite ambitious. If you go on like the Sky Sports channel, where I guess there's a lot of neutral fans, I think the top voted comment was, "This is how teams mess up and go back to the Championship." So clearly, neutral fans are kind of in Gary O'Neill's corner. They've got a lot of sympathy for him, which I think justifiably so. But I'm feeling kind of optimistic, about the new season in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, football can be a very cruel sport, right? Obviously, we like the good feeling of, a good story where he kind of took over, kept them up and all that sort of stuff. But I've mentioned it on a previous episode, like, at the same time, it's also a business for some people, right? And they're just trying to make sure the club is successful and stays in the Premier League for yet another season, right? So I'm very curious to see how Klopp, 2.0, survives at Bournemouth. It's going to be very interesting. But in terms of, like, to touch on the ownership stuff, is there anything that maybe changed in the hierarchy that the average football fan may have missed over the past few months?
Right. Well, I think a lot of people will be familiar with the fact that there was a big takeover. And I say big, it's big by Bournemouth standards. Yeah. I mean, I have it listed as £100 million plus acquisition, I guess, by the name that keeps going around. I guess he's fronting it is American investor Bill Foley. I've seen interviews with him, and he's kind of an older gent. Obviously, he seems to he's convinced a lot of Bournemouth fans. I think he's in their good books at the moment, but as you said, things can change quickly in football. One of the first interviews he did talking about Bournemouth, he called himself a dictator. He likes to be a dictator for things kind of around the club, which kind of struck fear into my heart for a second there. Yeah. But I guess powerful people are not always the kind of most amiable types, I guess. But and obviously there's is it Michael B. Jordan? B. Jordan, the actor who
he played Killmonger in Black Panther. If anyone's a Marvel fan,
right, sure. And he had the big role in The Wire, which I haven't seen.
Exactly. Another great show.
I need to see it. But that's a big trend in football, isn't it? Obviously, I think Wrexham is a bit of an exception because those guys are really involved in the day-to-day running, but otherwise, there's a lot of kind of people just up there for the posters and for the like a Tom Brady Birmingham City job. Most recently, they're kind of just there for the tweets, I guess. They seem very ambitious though. The new ownership. My dad takes his dogs for a walk in just a place 20 or 30 minutes away from the stadium, and they're building a huge new training complex there, and that's really he kind of goes there a few times a week, and he always takes pictures and sends them to me. So they're putting a lot of money into the club, relatively speaking, of course, by Bournemouth standards, I guess. And there were a few signings, right, towards the end of last year. Some of them worked out really well, I think you could say. Some of them less so. That's how transfers go.
Definitely. I mean, touching on that, it's a perfect transition because I did want to ask you about some of your January signings mainly that came into the club during the season. So I'll start with a name that I think a lot of Fantrax managers would be familiar with, Danga Uwatara. He seemed to have quite a good ghost point potential, always an exciting outlet for Bournemouth's, let's say, counter-attacks even. What were your thoughts on his impact last season?
Yeah, I didn't have his goals and assists listed on there, but I think it was definitely positive. He maybe didn't hit the ground running quite as quickly as some people thought he would, but ultimately he was contributing. There were a few bench starts in there as well. To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if there were some more of those going forwards, which people might not expect. I know he's one of the likely candidates to be picked first in the draft. I should say, just an interesting tidbit, he's a big hit with the Japanese fans.
Dango really?
Uwatara.
Okay. Yeah.
The reason being that dango is like a kind of sweet rice cake in Japanese. So you've got dango, and Uwatara means like the end of something, I guess. So the end of sweet rice cake.
I'd be a happy person at the end of a sweet rice cake, right?
yeah, I know, right? I know. Exactly. He's an exciting one to keep an eye on. Yeah, it's just strange about the bench starts, right? I'd be a bit concerned about that from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I was an owner last season, and I definitely had to make a note of having a starting forward or a backup forward or some sort of a rotational piece, because I thought he was too good of an asset to drop into the waiver pool or free agency pool, because some other in-tuned manager will definitely grab him, because we do know his threat, right? I mean, only one goal, I think, and 3 assists last season. I feel like he could have gotten more, but in a January window playing for Bournemouth, I mean, no insult to Bournemouth as a football club or whatnot, but in terms of the impact that he had, just by the eye test alone, he was quite an exciting player to watch. So another name I want to touch on, Matthias Viña. I believe he was a left-sided defender, seemed to attack quite a lot, had an eye for goal as well. Do you think he's going to be relevant for next season?
I remember the goals more than anything with him. He hammered a couple home. I think in consecutive games he got a few maybe 2 or 3 goals in there, and none of them were tap-ins. They were really kind of excellent finishes. Did he sign permanently? I feel he might. He was online from Roma, was it? Yeah,
I don't know if he signed permanently, because I didn't see any confirmed news on him. I can check that really quickly. Give me 1 sec.
I know we brought in. There's another left back which we'll go on to talk about a little bit later, who's come in young for quite a lot of money, which makes me. I suspect that he will not sign permanently.
So I think he's at Sassuolo now. So yeah, he probably did leave, because I'm pretty sure, and we're eventually gonna get to a few of these names, but I think you guys did sign some replacements. So yeah, maybe there's a chance that he doesn't come back. But I thought he was absolutely brilliant on his day. Scored good points as well. So yeah, I mean, definitely I think a player that we might miss. So why don't we touch on then another player that had an amazing impact, probably the best of the 3 that we're going to chat about from the January window, Hamid Traore, an absolute ghost point machine. I mean, sure, his Fantrax career was short-lived, I want to say. He only ended up, I think, playing, 7 games or something like that, but still averaged around 8.5 points per game in the default scoring. Can you maybe touch a little bit on Hamad?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He's initially he was the guy who impressed me the most of the 3, I have to say. Yeah, he's quite a small guy. I don't have his height at hand, but he kind of goes past people to say that. Again, maybe not the goals and assists there, but yeah, a lot of good dribbles, a lot of forward passes were in there. I liked him a lot. I think he picked up an injury for a month or 2, and then he was on the bench ever after that, really. I think, I've got it written in my notes here. There's a couple of forgotten men at Bournemouth, and I think he'd be a good example of that. I think his average draft position must be quite low, I'm guessing, but it's not a bad shout, someone to keep an eye on. He may get starts. I mean, I was trying to put together my formation and the best starting 11. I don't know if he's going to be in that. I don't know if he's going to be in that, at least initially, but if he can impress off the bench, then I think we may see him kind of come into the side. I'm not sure how much the new manager is going to rotate. I'll keep an eye on that, but he's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of average draft position, currently sitting at 119.55. So I would say maybe end of the 10th round, start of the 11th in a 12-person league. And he's the I guess the Bournemouth player that is going second from the club. So yeah, I guess people still remember what his points output were, but yeah, the fact that he's not part of your starting 11, it makes it very interesting. Is he fit at the moment? Has he played preseason? Are you aware of that?
I can say that he hasn't been on the score sheet. He hasn't got goals and assists, because I've got the names of the folks that have done that. I'll have to check that. I don't know that he is injured. I don't think he had the little red flag on his name on Fantrax, did he? So I'm presuming he's okay. It's just competitive in those spots.
Okay, cool. So then what we'll do is look at the current transfer window. Like we touched on, Hamed Traore, he's been a permanent transfer in from Sassuolo. So in terms of other transfer in, one name that is getting thrown around a lot, and I'm seeing a lot in drafts recently, the Hungarian Milos Kerkez, if I'm not mistaken, came in from AZ Alkmaar. What can you tell us about him?
Right, exactly. That's I was just saying before we started recording, there's a couple of names I had to research the pronunciation of. One of them was Andoni Iraola. Let me know in Twitter how I did with that. Hopefully I did okay. And it is, I had Milos Kerkez or something along those lines, which sounds more kind of Spanish or Portuguese.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure about his heritage exactly, but just some stats I had. He's a 19-year-old Hungarian. He's now playing for the national team. 52 games last season for Alkmaar, which I found pretty amazing. I mean, that's quite a shift. 5 goals, 7 assists in that time as well in the Eredivisie from the fullback position. Yeah, he plays left back, and I can't, especially with Vinya gone, I can't see him not starting for Bournemouth. He's almost a nailed on starter. Just looking for some information about the player, he says he models his game on Alphonso Davies, which is quite a compliment.
Yeah.
It's quite a comparison, right? I think something I wrote down here is stepping stone move. I think Bournemouth, we may see them become that kind of team where they bring in players not for 5 or 6 million, but it may be 15. That's been the number we've paid a couple of times this summer. And I guess they'll have a couple of amazing seasons, and then they'll try and maybe double that with a move to a bigger team. He's exciting. He seems like an exciting player. I would always be a little bit cautious about getting a Bournemouth defensive asset, just because I think they had about 70 goals against last season, which is one of the highest in the league. So you've always got those goals against points, but if there's a clean sheet, you're pretty much golden. You're looking good. You're sitting pretty if they can get a clean sheet out of there. Attacking returns, hopefully. I'm just thinking if you've got Kiefer Moore off the bench, maybe up front, whipping balls into him. If Solanke decides he feels like finishing a shot once in a while, you might get those returns.
Yeah, I mean, again, to touch on the defensive numbers, like the goals conceded, only 2 clubs conceded more goals than Bournemouth, which was Southampton and Leeds, 2 of the clubs to go down. So it'll be interesting if Kerkez can, put up enough ghost points to counteract any goals that Bournemouth might concede on that day. Definitely one to keep an eye on, and a lot of managers are definitely drafting him, I'll tell you that much. There are a couple of other names, and I'm not sure how relevant they are, and I'll let you maybe say whether or not you know enough to talk about them. One of them is Romain Favre. Again, you're gonna have to help me with the pronunciation.
Well, I'm gonna go with Favre, but I'm not sure if how that is. We signed this guy for, it wasn't cheap. It's more than 10 million, maybe 12 million, something like that. 13 million it is. So I thought, with maybe Lerma gone, he might be fitting into the centre of midfield or something along those lines. However, he was signed from Lyon, one of the big hitters in France, obviously. They have immediately loaned him back to Lorient, which I thought was I thought that was a bit sus for the season. Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be kind of rough if we get relegated there, and then he has to come to the Championship. But that's the risk they're playing. Looking into why that's happened. I just typed in Bill Foley and Lorient. He has a minority stake.
There you go. There's always some business connection, right?
These days, now more than ever, right? Yeah. But he's irrelevant for this year. It's more the other signing that I would probably focus on. Yeah, there's been 3 thus far.
Yeah. The other name that I'm seeing is Andre Radu. Came in from Internazionale Milano, so basically Inter Milan.
Okay, I believe he's the goalkeeper. He's a younger goalkeeper. Is he? I'm not sure if he's on loan, but
he's on loan. Yeah. So I'm assuming he's like backup then.
Yeah, I like Neto a lot. In Neto.
Yeah,
I think he's solid. Like in my FIFA career, I've got him signed as a as a backup keeper. In there, I think he's solid, and he's got really good leadership qualities. The one you've actually missed there, I guess, is Kluivert, right? Justin Kluivert.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, he's in there. So just to talk about him briefly, left winger. Obviously, the family name kind of weighing heavy on the back of his shirt there. His dad was my namesake, was an incredible player. So I was looking at some montages last night when I should have been going to bed because it's kind of an early start. But those montages are looking pretty tasty, I have to say. He's a very exciting player. Obviously, the montages, they focus on the good bits, right? And the good is very good, I would say. They were showing highlights from his time at Valencia last season, 29 games, 8 goals. He's a left winger, but I was seeing right foot finishes, left foot finishes. A lot of them he was breaking past the last defender and kind of finishing one-on-one. He was running onto crosses at other times. He has had a couple of loans. His career's been interesting. He started off at Ajax. His first season, I think he had 36 appearances, 11 goals. So that was really promising back in 17-18. A little bit of a quieter season after that, and then he moved to, I think after that, was it Roma he was at? Yeah, Roma, £15 million move. Maybe struggled a little bit to adapt in Italy at times, and he had a couple of loans after that as well, Leipzig, Nice, which were kind of decent, but he was at Valencia last season where he seemed to really have impressed. I would have relatively high hopes for him this season. You never know how a player exactly is going to adapt to the Premier League, but I think his attributes are really exciting. He's going to be the kind of player, hopefully, to get the 200 Bournemouth fans at the stadium off their seats. No, it's closer to 8,000, 9,000, I think, isn't it? But yeah, he's going to be taking minutes off some of the boys we're probably going to talk about a little bit later. Some of the guys who have been drafted. I think he must be a starter.
Yeah,
surely.
I'd expect so. But yeah, definitely big name pull over there for sure. And don't you think that I didn't catch your dad joke about Neto in goal?
Okay. No, you okay.
So, I mean, given all these transfers and everything like that, I mean, if you look back to last season, you ended up finishing, what was it, 16th, 17th? No, 15th.
15th is what
15th. Yeah. So, what would your expectations be for next season then?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, to go along with the manager's philosophy, it's kind of a high risk, high reward style of games. I would expect to lose maybe not 9-0 territory, maybe not like the Liverpool game. I think we had a couple of other very, very heavy defeats as well. Maybe not to that extent, but I think we'll get plenty of losses. To be fair, I think we'll get those in. I think the danger is that we're going to play beautiful football, but maybe not score the goals because the other teams around, the other teams trying to play the same kind of football just have better players in the positions. I guess what's giving me hope is looking at the promoted teams. I'm looking at Luton, Sheffield United, and
Burnley.
Burnley, with maybe them being the exception. I think we're better than those teams. Wolves, I think, are kind of
Really struggling. Yeah.
Everton are still not really.
Yeah.
Had a couple of good signings. Of course, Danjuma, who I was, as a Bournemouth fan, I was really hoping he would come back.
Yeah.
He seemed reluctant to do that. I mean, it seems like coming to Bournemouth would be a safer bet than going to Everton.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't to be. I guess wasn't to be. But if I had to put a number on it, 15th kind of feels right for Bournemouth at the moment. I think it's going to be very tough to break the top 10. But I think anywhere from between maybe 12 to 15 would be what they're targeting for this season.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right, I would say. Okay, so now, are there any other players or transfers you want to talk about before we move into like expected formation, starting 11?
No, that's all I've got at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so if the season starts tomorrow, I mean, it's basically starting in 48 hours. But let's say Bournemouth were the first fixture for this game week that's starting. What would your starting 11 be, and what sort of formation would you expect?
Right, of course, yeah. It's a really good question. We spoke about some of the new signings, and I think there are at least two of them. Kluivert, Kirkes and Kluivert are going to be in the 11. I'm pretty sure about that. And there's been some gossip. I mean, there's a lot of gossip around West Ham. I think Harry Maguire has just gone there.
Yeah.
Solanke is kind of getting some
Yeah,
West
I saw
Ham
the
whispers.
links. Yeah.
Yeah. I that was always my fear with him. I didn't think he was going to get a big step up move, but maybe a sideways move to a richer team. I suspected that might happen, and they're very rich with that Rice money.
And the European Conference League winnings as well, right? But if for a team that achieved that much last season, they've really disappointed this season. I mean, fans would have listened to our Inside Trax series with Fletch, a West Ham fan, and a lot of our friends messaged us after and was like, "Fletch, are you okay? You sound so sad." So yeah, I mean, it would be very sad to see Solanke leave Bournemouth, but assuming he stays, would he be part of your starting 11?
I think he'd have to be in there, yeah. I guess what I have at the moment is, Lerma's gone, so he was pretty much a mainstay in the team. That's one of the bigger changes you'll see. Neto, I believe, will be the starting goalkeeper. You're going to have Kirkes on the left side. Senesi, here comes the second pronunciation one, Zabani. Is the Ukrainian defender. And somehow Adam Smith, he keeps on keeping his place in the team year after year.
It's like Coleman or Milner,
Yeah, he's a very unlikable player for other teams. He's just got tons of experience. He's very aggressive on the pitch, and he's a bit of a shithouser, I would say. He really riles up the opponents, and with his baby blue eyes, I don't know. It's I would still expect him probably to start a lot of games, if not every game. And I think ahead of the four defenders, I'm imagining it's going to be a 2-3-1. So in front of him, obviously, there's no Lerma anymore. So I think Cook might start to get a little bit more playing time, depending on if the new manager fancies him. Lewis Cook, who I have to say, I know he had a good role. Was it with the under-21s? I think he's a little bit overrated, certainly by the co-commentator who I always listen to on the feed that I get. I think he's a little bit overrated, but I think he'll get more starts. Billing, maybe there or thereabouts, he'll play. You've also got Rothwell there as an option, but I think two of those in that kind of position, a little bit deeper. Ahead of that, I think you'll have the three. The combination of those players is what interests me, I guess. If we imagine Kluivert will be on the left. Speaking of forgotten men earlier on, David Brooks has been really impressive in pre-season. So I won't go into too much detail about the fixtures, but we had 5 matches in pre-season. He's got 3 goals. There was a 4-0 against Hibernian. He scored in that along with Anthony, and 2 for Billing. There was a 3-2 win against Southampton, which was Dango, Christie and Brooks scoring again. There was a loss against a very good Atalanta team, which, that happens. That's a very high quality opposition, in which Senesi got a goal. So if you're a Fantrax player looking for defensive kind of goals, he's probably the best option from our central defensive pool, I guess. And against Lorient, the team that we do have that connection to, you've got Brooks and Kiefer Moore scored. I think everyone was so happy to see Brooks come back after obviously the cancer.
Yeah, what a terrible time that he went through, right? Injury as well, so there was a lot going on for him.
Obviously, it's been so tough, and similar to the Dortmund striker whose name just escapes me.
Sebastian Haller, I think.
Yeah. It's amazing to see such players come back and really be at the top of their game again. I would say he's not not just there to kind of be a sweet story. I think he's there to play ball. And Manchester United played Bournemouth towards the end of last season, and he was just running rings around some of the United guys at that time. Yeah. With a full pre-season under his belt. I would really be looking at him. I think he's a great player, Brooks. He's quite slight, but he's very smart, very clever. He doesn't rely on speed as much as some other players. I think he's got really good skills in a lot of areas. So I would be looking at him to start. Perhaps not every single match, but I think he'll be in there a lot. But looking at Bournemouth's attacking options, I'm starting to like it. I'm starting to like it more and more. I think you've got Ouattara in there, obviously. Dango, my boy Dango, sweet rice cake. Forgotten man Traore is in there too. Christie gets a lot of starts too. Yeah. Tavernier, of course. Tavernier, who had some wonder goals last season. Fitness doesn't seems to be a bit of a concern with him. He doesn't last the 90 minutes often. He'll come on and off at half time. On occasions, which is a little bit strange, but I think he's good as an impact player. He'll be in there as maybe three of those guys across the attacking midfield, with Solanke leading the line. Kiefer Moore, obviously, as an option off the bench. They have Semenyo as well. I think his days are numbered. I don't suppose he'll have much of an impact at all. But Kiefer Moore is kind of one to remember as well in there, I guess.
Okay, so it's interesting with the whole options in midfield, because I had kept an eye on the preseason fixtures, and I saw Ryan Christie was playing a lot. He has the number 10 shirt. He got the most key passes for you guys last season with 30 of them. 1 goal, 2 assists to add. So I'm currently a Christie owner in one of my drafts that I just completed. So I'm a little concerned. Do you think it's a bit of a watch and see, maybe have a bit of patience with it? Or do you think, no, go and grab some nailed starter then?
That's interesting. Yes, I think at the moment, especially, last time I checked, he was injured on the game. So, kind of jumping ahead to my piece of advice for fantasy players, it's abuse the injured reserve spot. I don't know if you have that in your leagues. But, I recently found an exploit where you can add about 5 or 6 players. It's kind of unlimited the amount of players you can have in there. So my league's commissioner was disciplining me on that, saying that I mustn't do that. But he's currently in my injured spot.
Oh, so okay.
I've got I'm one and done. I guess I can say I have one league. I've been invited to many, but this is my league. Yeah. I'm sticking to it. So the pressure is high. I've got Kluivert, Brooks, and just for depth and for rotation, I've got Christie as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping that works. I'm going to see who gets the starts and kind of go along with it that way. Yeah. I think Christie, I would keep hold of him for now. Yeah. He didn't get a whole lot of goals last season.
No.
Very few. But those attacking passes, he's worthwhile on that front, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at, he had a run of games, I want to say, with some really good ghost point potential, where he was, averaging, I want to say, around 2 key passes between, let's say, April 15th till May 20th, if you ignore, the last game of the season, because I want to say that's a bit of a write-off. You go to Goodison Park, Everton's fighting for their lives. So I don't want to really look at the stats for Bournemouth that day. But, I want to say he was averaging maybe 8 to 9 points per game in that stretch. So it was definitely something that stuck with me, and I was like, okay, maybe he could be a bit of a late sleeper in a draft. So yeah, I agree. Fantrax is great in terms of having RS spots, but another thing that they're great with is updating their injury status of players as well, right? Having that solid red flag or the broken red flag, they do give you a little bit of a blurb, talking about what's happened in the preseason game, etc., and a bit of a snippet from the interview from the manager. So definitely that is really, really good information to have. So I think I'll be patient, hold on to him. See how game week 1 goes. If he's on the bench, maybe stash him if I've got other starting players. But if he's not there, do you think maybe it's a possible drop?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, if he's not playing, then another player is unlikely to pick him up. That's what I found.
Yeah.
You can gamble on that, and I think Billing is another player that often happens with.
Yeah,
I would say of all the players in my league, he's the one who was passed around the most. I guess.
Hot potato.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a 7-year-old son, and I guess all of his friends at football. You've got Neymar, PSG Neymar, you've got Messi, PSG. You've got that. And you've got a Bournemouth Phil Billing. He's got his Phil Billing shirt on next to them, so he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb there. But I love watching the guy play. He's such an unusual player, Billing. Very tall, but very good with his feet.
Yeah,
I think. Billing is another one who you can just bring in and out of the team. I think, especially if you're in even a league with 10 players, I think Christie, Billing, they'll be in and out of the bin, as I call it.
Yeah.
So maybe don't worry too much if you do end up dropping in.
Okay, lovely. So to touch on AFCON and Asian Cup, I noticed you have 2 players, Hamed Traore of Ivory Coast and Danga Ouattara of Burkina Faso. Do you think you guys are going to struggle without their presence, or based on the names that you've given and the formation, it seems like there might be options to kind of cover for them?
Yeah, it seems to be that way. Those are 2 big names, though. Those are two pretty key players. So I'm a little bit concerned on that front. And they're both attacking players as well. So obviously you need them to be contributing to goals and assists. I think there's cover to some extent, but I guess who covers the cover, right? I guess you'll be bringing in youth players, fringe players who may not be able to deliver from the bench. So there are options when those guys go away. It'll be a miss, and they would miss 3 or 4 games potentially, right? Yeah,
a few game weeks. It wouldn't be too bad, and I think if you are a decent enough Fantrax manager, you should be able to stash them on your bench and have a starting player cover them. All right, so do you want to touch on anything else before we move into the Fantrax side of things?
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling pretty good.
All right, let's go then. So this is the segment that fans really, truly care about most of all, right? The Fantrax game. So Patrick, tell us, who's your first pick from the Bournemouth lads?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. As I said, I'm in for one league only, and that finished last Saturday. And I believe the first player who went from Bournemouth, it was either Solanke or Kirkes. It was one of the two. Personally, if from my opinion, Solanke, I think you know what you're going to get. I don't see him having a kind of 15 goal season, as much as I'd like to see that. I think his kind of potential is maybe 10. I don't know exactly what he got last season, but he's never going to be like a 25 point Harry Kane type striker. He's never gonna be that, which is okay. We accept that about him. But I actually went for, is that controversial? I went for Kluivert there.
No, that's not at all. I mean, Solanke ended up getting, I think, 6 goals, 10 assists last season. So more of an assister, right? Kind of laid it off for runners, that sort of stuff. So
it's super valuable. He's really, really valuable to have in there.
So yeah, like you're saying, Kluivert first pick. Yeah, I mean, that seems like a bit of a sleeper pick in that sense, right? Because if you look at like the ADP number, he's like the 5th person going off of Bournemouth, and I think other than having that name recognition, that surname recognition, I don't know if a lot of Fantrax managers are quite confident if he's going to be able to replicate his numbers. But I mean, that's definitely one to note. I think if he's free in any of my leagues, I will be keeping an eye on him. What about your next 3 picks from Bournemouth?
I'll go into that now. I guess in terms of Kluivert, it's really the montages, the YouTube montages have done me in there. They're really good with him, which is probably why I've picked him at first there. But the next 3 I had, Kirkes, I guess, is there at the moment. He's not in my team, and there's a reason for that. I've for the first week at least, I've got Neto in my team in goal. I believe we're at home to West Ham, who are kind of all over the place at the moment, still figuring out how they're going to survive post-Rice. Sounds like I'm on a diet surviving post-Rice. So I think there's a sneaky chance of getting maybe clean sheet points there. A lot of shots against from their wayward strikers. I'm kind of hopeful Neto might get points there. Kirkes, we'll see. I think we mentioned some of the most goals against, equally some of the fewest goals for last season. I think it was 37 goals all of last season, so less than a goal a game. Worth noting, that's only one less than your team, Chelsea, Sanjay.
Yeah, I saw that in the notes. I was trying really hard to avoid that,
No, I wasn't going to let you get away with that. But you guys are going to have an interesting season.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm thinking that the next three, what I have written down here is Kirkes, Solanke, Ouattara. I have, but it was probably close between Ouattara and Dango there. Yeah, but I think the hidden gem is really what I want to get into.
Yeah, I mean, I like those picks. Definitely, I would back Ouattara. He was like, I want to say a forward 3. At times, maybe forward 2 for me. Like, I mostly, I want to say I played like a 3-5-2 formation last season on Fantrax. But yeah, I liked his ghost point potential. Maybe 1 or 2 games he didn't ghost that well, and it might have made, a Fantrax manager overthink, okay, he's a Bournemouth player, maybe I should not start him. But I think on his day, he's definitely worth the punt. Solanke as well. Is he on penalties? Would you say?
I believe he was last year.
Last season he was, right? So I would expect him maybe to be on penalties this time around. And again, there's a lot of hype around Kirkes, so definitely excited about that. No love for Phil Billing. He had like a bit of a breakout season.
Again, he's one of my favourite players to watch from Bournemouth. I love watching the guy play, and I think it was a travesty that he didn't get called up to the Danish squad for what was the last one, Euros or World Cup, whatever.
World Cup. Yeah.
That was a travesty. He didn't get called up for that. But again, I love the guy. I think I'm expecting him to have a slightly quieter season just because of some of the other names in there. I think he might be a little bit quieter. However, I think he's worth having in there. He's going to be in and out of people's teams. He's very droppable, I would say. But yeah, you can pick him up if you're kind of low on options. Score some screamers again, much like the Vinya we mentioned before.
Yeah.
He's not a bad option.
Yeah. Okay, so hidden gems. What have you got up your sleeve?
As if it wasn't clear enough already from earlier in the show, Brooks is what I have written in the docket here. I think, can you say, does he pass as a hidden gem? Does he get a pass there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. He's not just there to make up numbers. He's really direct, and he's looking very sharp in pre-season. Admittedly against Hibernian, Southampton and Lorient. It's not exactly the top of the league teams, but I think he could be there to make an impact. And I think Tavernier as well. It's tough to say that he's a hidden gem, but he's not going to start every single game. But if you can get him there, if it's against favourable opposition, he gets some whippies in the top corner. He has that in his bag. He scores some wonder goals, so it's not a bad bet. I think hidden gem, Kiefer Moore, I also have as one to consider there. Against certain opposition, if they're going to play kind of long and whip balls in, he'll get headed goals for days. He's very, very good at that. So not a terrible option on his day either.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right. Are there any other assets you want to touch on before we move into the final segment of the pod?
I would just say, watch out with the defensive assets. I think the centre-backs, they're busy. Centre-backs are very busy, but there tends to be a few goals against, so be wary of that. Traore, I'm hoping for good things from him. Yeah, Traore, maybe one to keep an eye on.
Okay, love it. All right, so Patrick, how long would you say you've been playing the Fantrax / maybe Toga? How far does it go back for you?
We were there for Toga, yeah. We were there in those days, those final days, yeah. We've been going for about 8 seasons.
Oh, wow.
We have about 8.0 in our title there. And it was really as a way for, obviously, some of us guys in Japan to connect. At first, it was mostly ALTs, so some of the language teachers here working in schools mostly. But then we would bring in people from kind of different industries, and the language teachers would go on to bigger and better things. Not me, I'm still a language teacher actually, but yes, it's kind of been an amazing way to keep us connected. We actually have 2, I don't know if this is common, but we have 2 leagues. And we've got it as a Division 1 and 2. And from this season...
We set up our league like that this season actually. So yeah, I'll let you explain it though, what you guys do.
It's our first time doing it. So last season we had 2 teams of 10, and the top I think that maybe the top 4 teams from both leagues would go through, and then we had a cup competition as well, and something like that. Yeah, basically the best teams would go through to Division 1, the lower teams would go to Division 2.
Yeah.
So it's got a little bit of the stakes are kind of high. It's not an MLS job here. It's there's actually relegation and promotion there. We've been going on for a while. It's been a good way to connect, and it's a really international league we have in there. There's a Trinidadian in the league.
Oh, really? Okay.
Living in Japan. He's kind of
I wonder if I know him. Well, what's his name?
His name's Brian. Do you know Brian?
Brian.
I'm sure there's plenty of Trinidadian.
Yeah,
Brians.
maybe. Brian Charles Lara, a famous cricketer. I hope Brian Lara is not in your league.
No, I wish. The PlayStation 1 days, I loved his video games. Yes. No, this isn't cricket fantasy here. But, no, we've got it's Americans, Canadians. I've got a couple of Japanese players as well, which is really cool.
That is amazing.
For the first time.
Yeah, it's
a diverse league.
I love how, and I say this, I've been saying this on the past few episodes. I love how football just connects us. Like it's truly amazing. So you're definitely a veteran. I'm gonna say that. So
yes.
I want to kind of pick your brain from like Fantrax advice, etc. Do you have any experience trading draft picks before your seasons even started? Before you guys have started the draft itself?
It's interesting. Before the draft has started, trading draft. No, I don't think we've done that. To be honest, we're kind of a wary, what can I say, skeptical bunch.
Yeah.
We're very hesitant on the trade front.
Yeah.
There were very few trades in the league last year. I think probably the whole season there were less than 10 trades.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting how different leagues have different attitudes to that. I don't know if you meet with your friends face to face, and that kind of helps the oil of transfers start flowing, I guess. But they just don't really happen. They don't materialize. There's plenty of messages and offers that I receive, but it's always, why would you try and sell me that guy? Surely he's a good asset. Why would you be trying to get rid of him? It's very
a lot more tactical.
I don't think I made a single trade last year. I've gotten away with a few in the past.
Okay.
I think I had a legendary one against Az. I think you might be familiar with Az.
Az Japan. Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine.
Shout out to you, Az. Thank you for your support.
Shout out and to Christian too. Christian, who got me in touch with you, put me in touch with you. Many thanks to him. I think he was a little bit intoxicated one night, and I ended up with trying to get my Timo Werner, who was new in the league, for Son Heung-min and a couple of other fringe players. I made the trade, and Werner stank the place up, and Son Heung-min was immense. So I always kind of rub that in his face from time to time.
Oh, what a steal! So in terms of trading with other managers, then you've kind of touched on, making a trade in the past. What do you kind of use as a metric to value a trade? Do you look at the form? Do you look at fixtures? Proven record, maybe injury history? Like, what do you use?
It's a combination of all of those things. I mean, ultimately, I don't make the trades very often, but in terms of dropping players and trying to move them on, it would be all of those things. I think consistency is always what you're looking for. You're looking for that floor, I guess you would call it, of 7 or 8 points at least. Kind of, you're trying to get ghost points, I know you'd call them. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I think a player like Billing, the highs are quite high, relatively high, but then he has some lower points in there as well. Yeah. So he's as I've said a few times. Sorry, Phil, if you're listening. I doubt he is, but
maybe you never know.
Got a tradable asset, I think, in there. And I mean the forwards. I'd like to keep hold of the Bournemouth forwards, but I don't know about you in your leagues, but I just have an abundance of forwards right now. I mean, my lineup is pretty stacked in that position, so you can only have so many, right? So if you can get a forward, decent forward in on waivers maybe, and then try to move them on for a defender or a midfielder, depending on how your squad is looking, that might be something to consider.
Okay. So in terms of Bournemouth assets, what are some players that maybe we could consider buying low at some point during the season, and then some players that you would consider selling high?
Okay. So buying low, I've written down that Solanke is quite a dependable, if unremarkable option. I think he gets those shots on target, but a lot of them are like the P rollers. They're very, very low power. You're not likely to get the goals from him, but I think he's a Getting better at dribbling too. He's quite a good dribbler these days, and hold up play is nice, although that doesn't always equate to points.
Yeah.
I think he's the kind of guy I'd like to, maybe this doesn't make sense from a fantasy perspective, but I'd like to get him in kind of low if possible.
Yeah.
And then, he's going to be a safe bet. Brooks is another one I'd get. Sell high. God, I really am throwing Billing under the bus here, aren't I? I've got Billing in the docket as well. As I said, I anticipate him maybe getting fewer starts this season. But the centre mid is looking a little bit light now that I kind of look at it. Him, Rothwell, and the other player in there. He's one that I had written down. Sell high, probably the defenders. Maybe the defenders after a clean sheet, if they can get like a lot of they're making a lot of tackles, maybe getting it forward, 1 or 2 attacking passes and a clean sheet. That could easily be 15, 16 points. The next fixture they play might be Liverpool, or might be Arsenal. It might be one of the big teams. So if you can get rid of one of the defensive assets, with maybe the exception being Kirkes, just because he seems to be a fantasy darling at the moment, feel free to get rid of the Bournemouth defensive assets. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any experience with Fab? Basically, for the listeners who don't know what Fab is, it's an added layer of complexity, I want to say, to doing waiver wire grabs. Does your league play with Fab at all?
So to confirm my understanding, we have 300 fantasy dollars basically that we play around. Okay, so that's essentially what that is. Yeah, okay. So we do have that.
Okay.
And it's I'm not an expert by any means. I've seen some interesting ones in the past. I've seen 300 all in on Ronaldo when he came into the league, which didn't work well. Yeah, I mean he had his moments, but it didn't work out amazingly. I've had some shockers in the past. I think I had big money on Paqueta when he first came to the league, who maybe many of your listeners did as well. Didn't really work out initially, but he's an interesting to watch with. Maybe he's going to City, right?
Saw that bit. Yeah.
But I tend to go in quite low on a few players. I'll get a few bids in there. Half of the league is still getting warmed up, so they're kind of forgetting to do it. As long as you just remember, we run them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you can remember when the waiver wire is going on, 1 or 2 sneaky bids, you might be in with a good time there.
Okay, so do you prefer to spend all your cash up front, or do you try and hold on to it as much as possible? Like, do you use playoffs and stuff in your league?
I don't think we do the playoffs. So it's only if we're on the same number, then they have like a tiebreaker.
Okay.
Who's gonna get it? Yeah. No, I don't. I don't know if can I use to spunk it up or
yeah. Listen, it's a very casual podcast. You can curse if you want to as well.
Right. I should have confirmed that ahead of time. But I don't spunk all my cash out up front. Usually, I tend to hold on to it. Højlund was one I was looking at, but with his broken spine, I'm kind of a little bit more hesitant. Yeah, he went ultimately for about I think it was 199 in my league, which is big. I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
I think currently I was feeling Perisic, so I got Perisic for 10.
Okay.
Just
cheeky punt. Yeah.
For a couple of my, I showed you my initial draft. I don't know if we'll have time to touch on that, but you were critical of my Gallagher pickup. I ended up swapping him out just because I needed a goalkeeper. So, we do use those Fab. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So you already touched on one of your trades that you mentioned. You got Heung-min Son for Timo Werner. Were there any other trades, and you can categorize them as your best trades, worst trades? Do you have any highlights that are memorable to you?
There's been a couple of shockers in there, I have to say, and they don't always work out. But again, there's so few, and we've been doing the league for so long. Last season, I don't think I had any. I was just very adverse to trades. I don't even know if I have an example to give you, Sanjeet. But it's always a gamble. It's always a gamble, right? You never know how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Do you find that's a big part of the fun of the community? Because I like the bin. I like searching through the bin, and I'm a bit of a scumbag. I always have Twitter open kind of 1 minute before kickoff, and I'm furiously checking that. That's where I get my fun more so
than trading.
Than from trades.
Yeah.
Personally, yeah.
I mean, I've only done I would say one trade in my life, and it was very successful to me. And I don't talk about it often because one of the managers I traded with is quite an avid listener and supporter of our podcast, and I feel bad because it was, I think, Ismail Assar for Bukayo Saka. Ismail Assar had started the season really hot, but then as soon as I made the trade, he got injured and was out for a few months leading up to AFCON and all that. And Bukayo Saka was flying, right? I think that's when people realized that, okay, this is definitely a kid to kind of watch out for. That was like 2 seasons ago, whatever. But I agree with you in the sense that I feel like you get better value out of the free agency pool or the waiver wire pickups. And if you're truly on it and you monitor assets, and I mean, if you're like, I don't want to say like an addict, but if you're checking like after every game or at the end of every game week, you look at, the points output of all the assets that have played, and it doesn't matter how many minutes they played or whatnot. I think that is important as well, right? Let's say they play 10 minutes and they put up 5 points. I think that is something you should definitely take note of, and maybe you probably be better off picking them up instead of trading with someone that might be lowballing you, that sort of way. Because like a great example for that was last season, Kaoru Mitoma, Japanese player, right? I saw his, and he was definitely a shout on our Inside Trax series last season as well. And I kept an eye on him, it was in the back of my mind, okay, Mitoma, and then I saw him get some minutes here and there, and he was putting up good ghost points every appearance he played. And then it was one press conference, De Zerbi mentioned him or kind of bigged him up. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think maybe he's worth a grab and a stash. The rest was history. I won my league. So I completely agree with your point of view in terms of maybe sometimes, scraping the bottom of the barrel might be a better, better luck for you in that sense. So
yeah. I mean, it's a similar story with me, with Mitoma. Yeah, I got him possibly from the bargain bin, as I like to call it. And he was immense, right? He's so beloved here in Japan. I don't know if you follow baseball. Do you know Otani, Shohei Otani?
No, I don't. But please educate us. I would love to know.
No, he's just an absolute icon of baseball. I don't follow baseball either. Cursed sport, but it's he's kind of the number one sports person, Japanese sports person at the moment. Absolutely. But in terms of football, more so than any of the other guys, probably even more than Kubo. Mitoma is just so exciting to watch, and Brighton are a very likable team as well. He's got a big following. I'm seeing a lot of Mitoma shirts on the kids' backs these days, which is great to see.
Oh, that is amazing. That is truly amazing.
Yeah, it's class. It's amazing. And he went in the second round this time, so I didn't get him this year, which is unfortunate. But I'm not sure if he's gonna.
I don't know what to expect because, like, I don't know if his output is sustainable. And yes, he was like getting an assist or scoring goals every now and then, but I did notice a slight fluctuation in his ghost points. So with all these new additions at Brighton as well, they're in Europe. Surely in my head, I'm thinking, okay, it's their first time in Europe. They're probably going to try and prioritize that competition or that journey a bit more than the EPL. So I'm not sure what his impact will be, what his points output will be. But I mean, I'm still very excited to witness their journey. They've done fantastic business. They're a great club to follow as well. And excited to just watch Mitoma. I mean, who doesn't want to follow a guy that did his, thesis on the ability to dribble past somebody, right? It's like absolutely.
I know that drives Twitter users up the wall, because I think that's a bit of a misconception. And he's gone on to say that I didn't do that. I was just trying to pass, and I was a lazy student. Just said stop retweeting that article. I know he hates that story. But,
okay. Well, I think that's a brilliant lie, if anything. Like
yeah. It's funny. It's very retweetable. Right?
Definitely. Okay, so final thing is, what lessons have you learned over the past few seasons that you can maybe take into your upcoming season that would help you out, or just general advice you'd want to share with the community?
Right. It's nothing too groundbreaking. I'm sure you've got some absolute pros listing, but I tend to stay away from like the CDMs. I guess they don't bring a whole lot of points in. It might be safe for like a 6 or 7 points, but I tend to stay away from them. I'm very. I don't know if you run leagues or if like a fantasy purist does the injured reserve spot, but we do. We've got one spot there. I'm just very on the money with that. I've always got that full with someone. Always get someone in there, and don't be afraid to drop them and bring someone else in as well. I just kind of abuse that a lot, which gets me some grief in the chat. But that's something to consider. And just be on the money with your pickups. Like I always use Twitter. Just have the official lineups as soon as they come out, and just be on the money with your pickups. That can make all the difference, right?
Yeah. And I mean, to kind of touch on like being able to grab players quickly, I'm not sure if you are aware of this and other listeners, but as a reminder, if you go on the Fantrax app, there's a filter called starting, and let's say you're trying to find your players frantically, right? It's good to just flick that on. Then all the players that have the green ticks in the game will only show up in your filtered list, and that's much easier than, flipping through 10 to 15 pages of players and, you're seeing X's or no status indications, right? So just, it's a good reminder of that. And with respect to IR spots, so a lot of the community leagues, they don't utilize that. In our home league, we do. I think it's quite important because, especially having gone through the pandemic as well, I thought that was probably one of the most important times to have an IR spot, because if they had COVID, you don't. What are you gonna do with your let's say your first, second, third, fourth picks all had COVID and they couldn't play? Like, you'd be absolutely screwed. You wouldn't want to be dropping them, right? So I think, yes, if possible, leagues should be flexible. I know not all believe in that, but yeah, I am a strong believer. I think IR spots, it helps keep things a bit friendlier in your league as well, right? Less likely for some manager to have an outburst about how unlucky their season has gone with their player status and stuff like that. And your ability to keep a highly ranked player, or a player that you drafted in round 1 or round 2. And like, for example, Gabriel Jesus, right, would have gone early. Christopher Nkunku, now he's out for 3 months. Imagine how valuable an IR spot would be, especially having, spent early rounds trying to get these guys. So I am totally on board with that, Patrick. I completely agree.
Yeah. It's a great point. Yeah, I would say, I'm not sure if it's just my league or if it's a Fantrax issue at the moment, but I know I was able to pick up 5 or 6. It seems seemingly an endless amount of players.
that might be your league. I've never had that.
Right. It's only from this time.
So
you might want to double check that. But as long as you get them out of your team, it's kind of against the sporting, it's bad vibes, basically.
All I'm hearing is that you're just a very clever manager that I should be wary of if we're ever in a league together.
I'm a perennial kind of cup run manager. I last year might have been, in all of the 8 years, it might have been my first time to win the league outright.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm very proud of
Congratulations.
that.
Congratulations.
So I was every trick in the book. Not reminding my friends, you might want to check your lineup. No, none of those friendly messages.
Pure competition.
I was in it to win it. Yeah,
love it. All right, listeners. So those are the picks. That is the pod. Thank you so much for tuning in for yet another episode. Patrick, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, chatting everything Bournemouth. Thank you so much for staying up at ridiculous hours, or being awake, I want to say, at ridiculous hours. We would love to hear you. We would love to hear from you later on in the season as well, if you're keen. Not only to chat Bournemouth, but to also hear about how your season's going and how you're defending your title. So yeah, I mean, on that note, listeners, stay tuned. We've got 2 more clubs to come. Are we gonna do this? I guess you'll just have to keep an eye out and keep your ears open. So we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.